VCT Champions 2024 was an insane tournament that featured some incredible performances by some very good players. And now that everything has concluded, Edward Gaming being the champions, it's time for us to look at which players had the best stats. In this video, just like previous stats videos that I've done, we will be going through a variety of different stat categories, talking about the top 3 players of each category. The only rule that I kept for this video was that each player had to at least play 3 matches. That way we can include some players that did go out in the group stage, but at least won 1 match. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So this is the board we have today. We will be going from the top left all the way to the bottom right. We will be starting by talking about ACS, Average Combat Score. Average Combat Score is how Valorant ranks players in game on the leaderboards, and it's no surprise that we see some pretty good players topping the charts. At number 1 is Durka, who had a ACS of 257.4. Close second is Zekin with 252.2, and Kane shows up at third with 250.8. No surprise from any of these players showing up. They are 3 supremely talented players, all 3 teams going pretty deep. Kane winning the entire thing with his team Edward Gaming. And I don't exactly remember where he was in ACS before that grand finals and just the whole top 4 performance that he had, but especially that grand final performance probably shot him up way higher than he was previously, because honestly earlier in the tournament Kane was looking good but not like fantastic, and then all of a sudden in the top 4 he really shows up, especially at that stadium and that grand final. Just the best performance I've ever seen by a player in any match ever. So as you can see, Kane won't top all the stats, but he does show up a decent amount. But one player that does show up a lot is Durka, especially at the number 1 spot for a variety of categories. If Durka being a restricted free agent is Fnatic's decision, then I'm very confused by that, because Durka is one of the best players in the entire world, and he has been since Valorant Esports started. I'll get into teams off-season moves in a different video, but seriously Fnatic, what are you doing? Just like ACS, it's not a perfect stat, and it's just done by one website, but it is a pretty good way to look at players' impact. At number 1 is Trex with a 1.23. He is on Team Vitality, of course. That team did not go deep, but Trex was pretty good for those 3 matches. Durka shows up again at number 2, 1.22 for him. And Chronicle showing up for the only time on the board. He's very good at getting a very high rating, 1.21 for him. Moving on to KPR, which is kills per round. This is a very good stat to determine how good each player is at fragging. And Durka shows up once again at the number 1 spot. He's already been in the top 3 for 3 categories, and the video just barely started. 0.92 kills per round for him, very impressive, just under that 1 kill per round. Meteor comes in at second. Genji didn't go very deep, but Meteor was very good in those 3 matches they played. 0.90 for him. Zekin on Sentinels, a team that went very deep, 0.89. He had a fantastic tournament. Moving on, we have total kills. So of course the 3 players that show up are players that went all the way to the grand finals. 2 players from Team Heretics and 1 player from EDG. Rians tops this category with a very solid performance throughout the tournament, which ended up with him with 419 kills. Miniboo at number 2 with 398. People were saying that he should have been swapped out for Patatek during the tournament, but Miniboo did have a very good chance. He really picked it up later in the tournament. Very heartbreaking loss for Team Heretics, not taking home that trophy, losing 2 grand finals in a row. Kane shows up at number 3 with 394 kills, and I think 111 of them were in the grand final. So that's a record breaker, and that's why he's number 3. Moving on, we have kills per map. We have Meteor at number 1. He had 19.5 kills per map. Very impressive work. Maybe Durka would have surpassed him if Genji had gone deeper, because, you know, the less games you play, the more your averages are going to be up, depending on how well you're playing, of course. But Meteor at 19.5, very impressive. Durka at number 2 with a 19.2, and Zekin showing up once again with 19. 3 players that are very good and getting kills when you need it. Moving on, we have first kills per round, and Kane tops the chart here. He had 0.23 first kills per round. Very impressive work from Kane. Again, that number being helped by his amazing grand final performance. Buzz of DRX shows up, not the last time he shows up on this video either. 0.22 from him, just under Kane. He had a very solid tournament. Zekin showing up once again at 0.20. Zekin had a very good tournament, but he didn't end up topping any categories on this board. Moving on, we have kill-death ratio, so this is a good way to determine how often a player is both living and getting more kills while they're living. One of the more basic stats in not just Valorant, but gaming in general. Durka with a very impressive 1.33. Usually you see players around the 1.20 range if they're playing really good, so having one above 1.30 is very impressive. Meteor at number 2, 1.32 for him. Chichu at number 3 with an impressive 1.24. So Durka, being a duelist player, being number 1 in the category shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Some duelists have lower KD ratios because they end up dying a lot because they're taking the first engagements, they're the one taking that space. But some of the best in the world, such as Durka and Ospos, usually top the KD category with a very impressive number. Moving on, we have first kill percentage. Kane shows up at number 1 once again. Same exact players in this category, then first kills per round. I'm realizing that putting this stat kind of useless when I just put per round, but hey, put it in here anyway. I'm gonna own my mistake. Kane with 23%, Buzz with 22, Zekken with 20. Moving on, we have ADR, which is average damage per round. How good are you at hitting your enemies? Well, Kesnit's pretty good at it. 170.7 average damage per round. Durka at number 2 with an exact number of 176. Durka coming in at number 2 with 167, and Zekken at third, 161 for him. Moving on, we have K-Max, which is the maximum amount of kills that you got in any game, or in any map, I should say. Durka tops this with 30. Ospos and Tens tied at number 2 with 29. Kind of surprised that it's only 30. I know 30 is obviously a very high number, but with just the amount of skill that we see in the VCT to this day, it's kind of surprising that we didn't get like a 35 or 33, somewhere around there, but still very impressive numbers by these three players. Moving on, we have headshot percentage. Rians tops this with a 38%. Very impressive work from him, especially with how deep Heretics ended up going. Having 2 players in the top 3 for this, you would expect that number to drop as the tournament went along, so maybe it was really high at the start. Meteor at number 2 with a 37%, and Woot, I do believe Forsaken was above him in this one, so I am kind of breaking my 3-match rule here. I felt like it was more worth it to talk about Woot with 36% than Forsaken, who only played 3 matches, having a 37. Woot, 36%. He was topping all the charts in my stats video for Shanghai. This is the only time that he shows up on this board, so he didn't have as good of a tournament, but Rians picked up the slack there. He was very good as well. Moving on, we have clutch percentage. So when you're in a clutch situation, how good are you at winning that? Bianc of Trace Esports ends up topping the list with 35%. Very impressive work. Bane of DRX, 28%, and a familiar face in Durka with a 27%. Moving on to our last category here, we have first stats per round. It's the only bad stat on the board, but it makes sense that these 3 players are here because they are duelist players, and usually those players are the first to die. Jane of Paper X, who really had a rough tournament, 0.23 for him. Buzz ended up having a 0.22, so kind of averaged out his first kill percentage with the fact that he died first a lot of the time. And Kane, with just how fast this guy is playing Neon and just how aggressive he is, makes sense that he would have a 0.19. So those are all the stats for the VCT Champions 2024 tournament that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, there are more stats that are a bit more in depth, but I wanted to kind of look at the more basic ones. Well, not just basic, but the kind of overarching ones. There's obviously stuff like how many first engagements do you win. I believe Chichu won like 70% of first engagements, so he was insane for that. There is a wide variety of stats you can talk about when you're talking about Valorant Esports, and you're probably going to see some crazy stuff wherever you look, because these players are supremely talented. So that's everything that I have to talk about today. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of this video. What stats are you most impressed by? Which players are you most impressed by? Let me know down below. Please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.